In 1692, the town of Salem, Massachusetts, became the center of something much bigger than anyone could have imagined. Whispers turned into accusations, and fear turned neighbors into enemies. People of all ages and backgrounds suddenly became suspects. A strange dream, unusual behavior, or just being a little different could lead to imprisonment, or worse. The town's atmosphere shifted rapidly from communal trust to collected suspicion. More than 200 people were accused of witchcraft. 19 were hanged. One man, Giles Curry, was pressed to death over 2 days with heavy stones for refusing to enter a play. Dozens more sat in overcrowded, filthy jails. Most were ordinary people: mothers, ministers, farmers, even children. These weren't isolated mistakes. They were the result of a society that let fear overpower fairness and let doubt take the place of proof. This panic didn't come from nowhere. It was fueled by strict religious expectations, harsh social rules, and a shaky political environment. The trials weren't just about witches. They were about power, control, and the dangers of unhacked authority. Sermons and pep tales shaped public truth, making fear not only acceptable, but expected. In Puritan Salem, religion was more than a belief system. It was a way of life. Everything from how people dressed to how they spoke was guided by scripture. The Puritans believed that they were chosen by God to build a holy community. But this strict moral code also meant that everyone who didn't fit was seen as a threat, not just to society, but to divine order. Cotton Mather, a prominent Puritan minister and political figure, played a central role during this time. In More Wonders of the Invisible World, he described the trials as a part of spiritual war. Mather portrayed witches as an enemies of God and defended the court sections. His use of religious language justified fear and gave authority to otherwise unsupported claims. The influence of Mather's writing helped shape not only the trials, but the public's willingness to accept them. In court, people were convicted based on dreams, visions, and confessions made under pressure. Once someone else was accused, it was nearly impossible to prove innocence. Violence and punishment were framed as moral acts. The system no longer protected the innocent, it enforced fear and religious conformity. Those most often accused were already vulnerable: poor women, widows, people who lived alone or spoke their minds. Being different, economically, socially, or personally, was enough to be seen as dangerous. In a society guided by a narrow vision of piety, standing out became a threat. Some participants of courts expressed regret. In 1697, Judge Samuel Seval stood before his congregations and publicly confessed his guilt. This moment, recorded in the Diary of Samuel Seval, marks one of few public acknowledgments of wrongdoing. Seval's admissions reflected not only personal guilt, but also growing awareness that fear had overshadowed justice.
Accusing others became a form of self-preservation. People confessed or blamed their neighbors to avoid punishment. Long-standing relationships were destroyed as trust dissolved. Panic, once introduced, spread faster than any single accusation. The trials blurred the boundaries between religious belief and legal authority. Ministers like Mather influenced public courts, and judges saw themselves as defenders of divine order. This fusion made questioning the trials difficult and dangerous. Conformity became a survival strategy. Historian Richard Latner argues in The Long Crisis of Salem Village that the trials were deeply tied to political tensions. Salem was dealing with land disputes, leadership changes, and religious fragmentation. Latner suggests that accusations became tools for reinforcing authority and suppressing dissent. Fear was not just a reaction, it was a mechanism of control. Even when the accusations ended, the trauma remained. Families were left broken, reputations ruined, and justice unfulfilled. The 1697 confession of Samuel Sewall was rare. Most involved in the trials remained silent. The scars left behind would shape collective memory of generations. This wasn't the last time fear was used to justify injustice. Patterns seen in Salem would echo in later moments of moral panic and political targeting. Though the context may change, the dynamics remain. Fear simplifies, divides, and controls. The Salem witch trials show how quickly institutions can collapse when fear replaces reason. The writings of Matter, the apology of Sewall, and the analysis of Latner all highlight how religion, politics, and fear can combine to create powerful injustice. The legacy of Salem is not just about witches. It's about people, power, and what happens when questioning authority becomes a crime. The voices of 1692, preserved in books and confessions, still speak, reminding future generations to stay alert to the cost of silence.